friends, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to talk about functions. So the first question we need to answer here is that why are we actually using functions, right? What's the benefit? So, in programming, it happens a lot that you have to repeat the same lines of code over and over again. We will see that in the future. But to avoid that, we usually define functions. So we define it first, you know, and then keep calling it all the time. The other advantage of, having functions is that it makes it much, much, much easier for you to debug the code later. Anyway, so it's a very useful concept in programming, and we're using that. From now on, I'm actually using the VS Code to code, and as you can see, I have it open here. We talked about how we can install it and everything. So once you have this, you go new file and just a Python file, right? And it gives you a Python file. You can just save it. I'm just gonna save it here as like in my desktop, and I'm just gonna call that. Um, we're talking about functions, so file functions. Make sure that you have the .py in here. It says that it's a Python file, right? So you have the file here. It's an empty file. So let's get started. We have three different function types in Python. The first one is the built-in function, which you already know what they are, and you've actually used them without knowing what they are. For example, when we used to say print, right? Uh, hello, that's a function, right? We can run it. Just click on the triangle in here, and it runs it for you, and it says hello. You can see printed out here in the terminal, right? That's a built-in function. You install the Python, it comes with it. Another example of that is the input function, right? We can say how far here, and it's a function, right? Somebody defined that function, right? Python developers did that, and you can just like call the function and use that. See, it says hello, the first, and then the second command is how old are you? Just gonna do 10, for example, and it works. That's about the built-in function. The other function type that I wanted to talk about, let's just comment this out. We don't read it yet. Um, is the library-based function. What are those? These are the functions that you have to call a library first. Like you have to install the library, and then from that library, you have access to a lot of functions. How they do that? There is a keyword, and that's import, right? You see, like, because you're coding in Python and because VS Code understands Python, it's the .py, right? That we did. So Python knows, and there you have the color coding thing, and it's like really cool. Anyway, so we use the keyword import, and then we say the name of the library. For example, random. I'm importing the random library, right? And once I have that imported, I can actually go and use a function from that library. How do I do that? I call the name of the library, and I say I'm using library random. So random dot, and then like these are all the available functions. Well, some of them, not all of them actually. I'm using one which is called randint. You can read the documentation about this, right? Or any other functions that you may need. What randint does is that it returns a random number between the given range. So if I go from 10 to 100, see, it says return a random integer in range A to B. A is included, B is excluded. So when I say from 10 to 100, it returns anything from 10 to actually 99. Anything is possible, right? And I can just go print X and let's run that. And it says 48. Run that again, 33. It's going to be different, right? So this is a library function. Another example is the math function, the math library, sorry. And you can go, for example, x equals 3.4 and y equals math. That it's a ceiling function, right, of x. And then we can go print y, see what happens. Well, 86, that's this line in here, the random number that would generate that. And this is the ceiling function executed on 3.4 that rounds it up to 4, right? Just like that. So the general practice is that you have to keep the imports at the very beginning of the file that you have. But here we're just like talking about different concepts. So I don't really mind if we just use the imports inside. So that's okay. So this is the library functions. But an important one that we want to talk about today is the user-defined function. That's the third type. What if you want to define your own function to do your own thing? It's easy. There is a keyword, def. It says that you want to define a function, right? So you go def, and then you give it a name. I'm just going to say hi, right? And then brackets. If the function gets any input, you put that in the brackets. You'll see example of that shortly. But if not, then nothing, and then colon, right? And then inside the function, same thing. If you remember, when we were talking about the if statements, we said that space 4 times, and here you can see that it's been spaced 4 times. It automatically does it for you. And then I'm just going to say print hello. So function is defined. If I run this now, nothing is going to happen. See, nothing happened because I've just defined a function. I haven't used it yet. So what I can do, again, just like the if statements, I have to go back so that it knows the function definition is over. And I'm just going to call the function, say I, right? Just like that. And run it now. And it says hello. It runs the function for you. Let's do something else. Let's modify this. I'm going to define a different function. Say hi or y, right? And then I'm going to give it an input x, right? And I'm going to say if x equals 0, right? Then print hi, and then else print y, right? Okay, this goes there, just like that. And now let's call, say, hi or by, and then we have to give it an x value. So I'm just going to go 0. If I run that, it says hi. If I change that to 1, right, x is not 0 anymore, so it goes to the else statement, and I'm expecting to get a by. And that's exactly what I get. So it's working. We can actually make it more fun. Let's remove the x value and then come here and say, I'm not providing an x value for you. I'm just going to say x is equal. Let's bring back the random library, and I'm gonna go random that randint. I want to get anything between 0 and 1, right? Well, in fact, it actually doesn't even matter. If it's 0, it does this. If it's anything else, it says bye. So I'm just going to go between 0 and 2, which is either 0 or 1. And now let's see what happens. Make sure that you remove this because now you're telling the Python that this function doesn't get an input. So if you put anything in here, it's going to error out. You can try it for yourself. So this, it says bye. I did that again, bye, bye, bye. Hi. See, this time was different. It's a random number generator. So it just randomly assign 0s or 1s to X. And based on that, this is being executed. Just like that, you can define any function that you want. And my suggestion for you is that do the same thing and get your hands dirty. Start playing with that. Start adding else if statements, right? Make it as complicated as you want. Try new things. Don't be afraid. Put a number in here. See what happens. What if I go 3 in here? Let me run that. It errors out. It says this function takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. It's very easy to understand this error code, right? It's saying, you gave me one input argument, but I was expecting 0. So fix that, right? Don't be afraid. You're not going to break your computer. You're not going to do anything bad. Just go crazy. Try as many things as you want. So that was about the Python functions. In the next video, we're going to talk about loops. Stay around and see you in the next video.